Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. My name is Patrick Fingler. I work in our technical marketing department here at Latitude Geographics, and today we're going to review how you can build Web AppBuilder widgets using Geocortex Workflow. Okay, so I'll first begin by providing a quick introduction to Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS for those on the line who aren't familiar with what Web AppBuilder is. I'll then transition into how you can actually extend Web AppBuilder even further through custom functionality. We'll then provide an overview of Geocortex Workflow. It's a new product that we've been developing here at Latitude Geographics. And really what it does is it allows you to make custom widgets without having to do custom development. So through configuration, and it makes that process a lot easier. And then we'll dive into some sneak peek into some new functionality that we've been working on that's also coming to Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS. Okay, so for those who don't know, Web AppBuilder is a light viewer framework that Esri has developed, and it's really good for quickly developing purpose-based WebGIS applications. It comes with a collection of out-of-the-box tools and widgets, really suitable for common GIS operations, whether you're having to perform a buffer or select some features on the map or edit features. It's really easy to use and also easy to configure. So I just kind of want to start off with a quick demo of what Web AppBuilder actually is. So here I am in my ArcGIS Online organization. It's our Latitude Geographics organizational account. I'm logged in as Patrick, and I'm going to navigate to my content. So if you want to build a Web AppBuilder application in ArcGIS Online, you can click Create, and we're going to want to create a application using the Web AppBuilder. I'm going to enter a title, so I'm based in Victoria, and maybe I'm wanting to perform a hydrant inspection. So I'm going to call this Victoria Hydrant Inspections. I'll add a tag called hydrants, and I'm going to click OK. So now I'm loading Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS, and actually in the previous section, it asked me, do you want to build a 2D or a 3D Web AppBuilder application? So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that later in the webinar today. But in this example, I've selected a 2D Web AppBuilder application. So here is, I'm essentially in the configuration framework for Web AppBuilder. Again, it's quite intuitive. I could choose different layouts, but really what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to populate this map with some of my own data. Now, Esri does this by using web maps. So I'm going to select a web map, and here it's going to provide me with a list of all the web maps that I've created, so I could search for web maps within my content or web maps that have been shared with me, that other members within my organization have created. I'm going to select this Victoria Hydrants one and click OK. So here I can see I've got 4 different hydrants showing up, and I've got a base map provided by Esri. So it's looking pretty good. Again, I could change the branding of it even further, but really what I'm probably going to want to do is start adding some tools. Now, again, I mentioned Esri comes, or Web AppBuilder comes with a number of out-of-the-box widgets. Now, if I add a widget here, you'll see these really range from a variety of different GIS functionality. If you're wanting to get directions, if you want to edit some features, maybe draw some markup on the map, select some features. So again, definitely worth exploring some of these. I'm just going to add a widget to edit my hydrants. And looks pretty good, so I'm going to click OK. And I've now added a widget. Now, if I save this and launch this, we'll see we're now launching my Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS application, and I've now simply added a tool that allows me to edit some hydrants. So optionally, I could add additional physical hydrants in Victoria, but commonly what you're going to want to do is actually inspect a hydrant. So we do that with relationships. So I'm going to select this particular hydrant here, and you'll see there's some related tables. So I can see all of the different inspections that have been performed. So I can see that last month, my colleague Vince Ruck has made an inspection on this hydrant, said it was in great condition, and we can see that Paul Van Haren said it is in fair condition. So the hydrant is working, but there's just a little bit of rust. So I might want to create a new inspection here. Just give it some time. And I'm going to enter in my name as Patrick Fingler. Select the status again as I'll say it is poor. I'm going to select the date as, let's say I was inspecting this, I don't know, last week, or so maybe Friday, May 29th, or sorry, that was June, let's go May 31st, so Thursday last week. Again, I could select the time as well, so 1 p.m. and enter in some comments. So hydrant should be fixed. Send someone, I don't know, next week or something, next week to repair. Send someone to repair. And I'll click close. And now what it's doing is it's taking this information and it's populating an inspection. So now if I actually selected this again and selected my inspections, we should see there's 3 inspections, and the latest one that I performed was on May 31st. So that's just a quick example of how you can add widgets into Web App Builder. There's tons. It's really good for creating a lightweight WebGIS application. I'm now just going to hop back into the deck because, again, definitely worth exploring those widgets. They do a lot, but there are lots of scenarios, and a lot of organizations find this is that they kind of want to create more custom tailored WebGIS applications. Maybe they want more robust inspection applications, for example. So again, Esri provides you with a lot of great out-of-the-box tools, but sometimes you want to go a little bit further than that. So Esri actually provides another version of Web App Builder for doing that. And they call it their developer edition of Web App Builder. Now, this is an extensible framework of Web App Builder. It allows you to get even more out of Web App Builder by creating these custom widgets and themes. So that edit tool that I added to the map is called a widget. And Esri provides a framework that allows you to create custom widgets. They also have another kind of developer edition of Web App Builder that's extensible, and this ships with Portal for ArcGIS. But again, building custom widgets does require some JavaScript or TypeScript experience. Coming from a GIS background myself, I don't have that experience, but a lot of organizations might have some GIS staff who do have that experience. But there are still some drawbacks of custom development, even if you do have developers in-house that can create these custom widgets. First of all, it can be quite time-consuming. Again, it can also be difficult to maintain. It requires development expertise in your organization. But one of the main things is it can be really vulnerable to technology change. And a good example of this is I mentioned at the start of the presentation, there's a 2D version of Web App Builder and a 3D version of Web App Builder. Now, the 2D version of Web App Builder is built on Esri's JavaScript 3.x API. Now, they're currently working on their 4.x API. It's currently at 4.7. Now, as you want to migrate to the new 3D pattern, people who have invested and developed custom widgets in the 3.x version of Esri's JavaScript API are actually going to have to consider rewriting those entire applications. So that's a huge overhaul, and this is actually from Esri saying this. So again, yeah, that's definitely a drawback when developing custom widgets. So yeah, what version of Esri's API for JavaScript do you choose when you're contemplating creating a custom widget? Their 3.x API, it's at version 3.24, so it's got a ton of functionality. There's so much you can do with it, but you might want to use the new model, right? The new pattern, which is their 4.x API. I'm going to be introducing new capabilities, so such as being able to create web scenes and work with 3D GIS. And eventually, again, this 4.x API will reach feature parity with the 3.24, so it'll have a lot more functionality and eventually surpass that. So when do you kind of make the switch? It's essentially inevitable. Now, many organizations are contemplating, do I invest in the present or the future? And they've been doing this, this isn't anything new. They've been doing this for a number of years, whether you're, going from the Web ADF, investing in some money on that for your WebGIS applications, then having to reinvest in that same functionality as we transition to Silverlight, and then even having to reinvest even more when transitioning into, HTML5, JavaScript, within Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS. So this isn't something new. Organizations have had to ask this question for a number of years, but you really don't ideally want to have to rewrite your applications every time there's a change in technology. So bridging the gap, we kind of contemplated this decision ourselves. What version of JavaScript do you use when building a new application? So we've ended up designing a product that is flexible, future-proof, and configurable. So really providing the flexibility of custom development, but through configuration. And important note here, it works within both JavaScript APIs. So the same thing that you build will work in both the 3.x and the 4.x API. Really important. But obviously, creating a product that's geared to helping organizations operate more efficiently, being able to handle complex logic, to automate repeatable GIS operations. It can be easily modified on the fly if your manager asks you to, add some new business requirements to it. And a product that's also easy and intuitive to interact with. So putting GIS into the hands of as many people as possible. Typically, it's your non-GIS users that are performing, day-to-day tasks with your spatial data. So being able to create a product that allows these users to accomplish their tasks through guided step-by-step interactions. And again, being able to work in desktop devices, mobile devices, and also in both Geocortex applications, but also Web AppBuilder applications. We definitely recognize that a lot of organizations are using Web AppBuilder. So again, trying to put GIS into the hands of as many people as possible. So our product that we just created is called Geocortex Workflow. And this really allows you to extend both your Geocortex and your Web AppBuilder applications by turning these sophisticated business processes into simple, guided end user interactions, all without requiring custom development. Yeah, no coding. Really? Yeah, it's true. And again, you create these applications and administer them through a web-based design experience, which I'll be showing. And we've got hundreds of these pre-built activities that allow you to build these custom forms, custom functionality, and essentially custom widgets. So I'd like to hop into another demo showing you how you can build widgets with Geocortex Workflow. All right, so here we are. I'm in a Web AppBuilder application that I've created here. Again, I've pulled in my same web map from the previous example. And in the last example, what we were doing is we were editing some hydrants and through inspections. So here you can see I've added 2 widgets here. This is just an example widget that which you might provide to your end users, for help. If they have any help. In this example, I've just created a widget that showcases some of the new functionality with Workflow itself, which is our new product. But in this example, I've created a widget using Geocortex Workflow to create a custom form that allows an end user to perform some hydrant inspections that's really intuitive to use. And does a lot of different operations in the back end. So for those seeing this little licensing message here, Geocortex Workflow is free to try, so you can try it out. You'll just see this kind of nag there if you haven't licensed it, but definitely worth trying out if this is of interest to you. So here I've started a workflow, and again, I've got this nice dynamic description here that shows if I want to, learn about what the workflow does. And here I'm going to select my location. So I might be a mobile worker and I want to inspect some hydrants. So I could manually select a location on the map. So I could select a point and we can dynamically generate some additional form items, reverse geocode that location and populate an address here. But I also might want to use my own geolocation. So I'm going to select that and it's going to take me to my current geolocation and it's saying I'm at 56 Songhees Road, very close to this hydrant here. So I might want to now buffer my area. Again, we're zooming out to that extent of that buffer and select any hydrants that fall within my buffer extent. So you'll see here, we're not selecting this hydrant over here, but what we've done is we've selected these three particular hydrants here and I've displayed them in a little form here and I could hover over each hydrant and select which one I want to analyze. So I might want to see, how do I get there from this location to there? You'll see it's just automatically routing me to that location. So again, I'll just have to walk, left along Songhees Road to actually get to that hydrant. But if I selected this hydrant over here, it'll provide me with a different route. So again, you're able to call a number of different GIS operations using workflow technology to perform a variety of different tasks. In this example, I'm going to just go back to my hydrant ID 1711 and route me to that location. So once I get there, I now might want to perform a new inspection, or I might want to view past inspections. So again, creating these dynamic forms is quite easy to do. And I can see that my colleague Paul Van Haren has performed an inspection 2 months ago at this hydrant, saying that the hydrant is beginning to rust. So I might want to perform a new inspection here, enter my name as Patrick Fingler, enter the status as good, because I am hydrant was rusty, it has been fixed. Fixed if I can spell, there we go. And you'll notice that I'm automatically pulling in the current date and time. Extremely easy to use. I could change the time if I really wanted to, but extremely simple. I'm not having to fiddle around with a date time picker if I don't want to. And I'm going to click submit and perform my inspection. And it says my edits were created successfully. Would you like to continue editing? Sure. So I'm going to return to start. It'll loop me back to the start of my workflow. And now I can, again, use my geolocation, select where I am, or I might want to select my location actually being on this particular hydrant because that's where I'm now located, and click submit. Again, perform my buffer. And I now might want to go inspect this particular hydrant here. So I'm going to select 1714, perform a route to that hydrant. Once I get there, maybe view some past inspections so I can see this is the one I believe I just entered in the past example with the Web AppBuilder that ships with ArcGIS Online. I can also see that my other colleagues, Vince and Paul, have also entered in some information as well. So again, I could perform a new inspection, enter my name as Patrick Fingler again, and say that it's in great shape. Hydrant is in great condition. I'm just fixing all of the hydrants today. It's great condition. Click submit. So again, this is just one small example of a workflow. They're extremely configurable. There's tons of examples that our customers are using them for. And I'll kind of walk you through just how easy it is to build these custom widgets. So I like to call workflow like a widget, a custom widget for building custom widgets. So in order to get to the design experience of Geocortex Workflow, you navigate to our apps.geocortex.com, workflow/designer, and I'm going to click Let's Get Started. Now what this is going to do is it's going to ask me to sign in to our designer. So I'm going to sign in using my ArcGIS identity, using my Latitude Geographics organizational account, and that should sign me in. And now I'm inside of the design experience. So kind of the functionality that I showed you in this example was all created in this design experience. If I wanted to, I could search for my workflows and actually find that specific workflow. I think it's called Web_inspections. And this is the actual workflow that I created. Again, we will probably start with something simpler, but you can see here we're kind of stringing together these activities that are on the left, which range from a number of different options, common GIS tasks like performing buffers, calculating distances, getting your current position, to working with forms and features and performing editing, running geoprocessing tools. So there's specific activities for working inside of Web AppBuilder. So tons of activities, tons of functionality that you don't have to write yourself. If it's already been written, great. Why not use that, right? So again, I'm not a developer, but I'm able to string together workflows to perform these kind of complex business tasks. I'm going to just go to a blank workflow here and search for the most common activity is our display form. So, there's so many, applications where you're having to present a form to a user, get that user to fill out some information, and then perform something with that information that they enter, right? So creating these forms is really easy to do. And we've got a bunch of form elements that you can add. We saw I had a geometry picker in that last example. You can have file pickers. So if you want your users to enter some information enter some attachments, you can add numbers, so restricting the information that you enter. You can also set up validation rules, so only certain items can be entered. Drop-down lists, you get it. There's lots of stuff that you can add. I'm going to add a text box and delete some of these additional form items, and just let's say I want to get the name of a user. So I will ask that user to enter a name. And again, we support Markdown, so I could also bold this and style it if I wanted to. I could change my form title to say, I don't know, user form, and that's great. I'm pretty happy with that. I could also change the default value to, hello world or something like that. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's a nice form, and it looks good. Now, each activity that you add, for example, if I add a buffer activity, has an element ID, which you'll see here. Now, we reference, we were able to obtain values using these element IDs. So I'll show you, if I wanted to present that value that they enter to the user, I can add another common activity. It's an alert activity. And the process of actually obtaining this value is, again, quite simple. And we use it by referencing the IDs, and if you're working with a form, also the element IDs. So, and we use this using JavaScript notation. And again, I'm not a developer. All you have to do is type equals to start an expression. It'll search for all of the activities that you have in your workflow. I'm going to select form 1. If I add a period, it'll give me the properties of this form. The result is just, did the user hit submit or cancel? And the state is what elements are within that form. So we've got a footer, a header, and my text box 1. So I'm going to select my text box 1 because I'm after that value. And these are properties for the text box 1. And you'll see here, there's value, indicates the current value. So I'll select that and I'll click OK. And I'm essentially passing in the output of this form into this alert. And it's just going to pop up, have a pop-up saying the user's name. And if I wanted to, I could then save this workflow. I'll call it enter name, name, and click save. It's not really a great name, but that's totally cool. And if I navigate to my info tab, you'll see we're actually dynamically storing these workflows in ArcGIS Online. So if I click view here, you'll see my my workflow, enter name, ended up showing up here, and I have the option now to share it with everyone. Maybe I want everyone to be able to access this workflow because it's so awesome. And yeah, you can manage the permissions that way. So I've now shared it with everyone. It's being stored in ArcGIS Online. Another useful thing to do is being able to run this workflow in our sandbox environment. So here I can load up the sandbox environment, and you'll see there's a number of different APIs that you can load. So I can see this workflow running in the 3.x API, which is using a 2D. So I'm running this workflow. It's presenting me with the form. I'll change this and call it, my name is Patrick Fingler. If I click submit, you'll see I'm getting an alert that's passing in that value, Patrick Fingler. But also, if I select 3D map, the same workflow will work across Esri's JavaScript API. So if I run this workflow, again, maybe call it Patrick and add a couple exclamation marks, click submit, you can see it's still working. So really, really useful. You're not having to redevelop your custom functionality if you're wanting to kind of port the same workflow into a 4.x application. Huge, huge benefit. So that's a useful tool. But now I've got this workflow, how do I add it to Web App Builder? So I'm gonna go to Web App Builder. This is our hosted developer edition. I'm gonna create a new 2D web app and click next, and I'll call this hello world. I probably have something named that, so I'll just call it hello world underscore the name of the workflow. So enter name, click OK. And just give that a second to load. All right, so now we're in Web App Builder. I can now add a widget. If I select my widget here, you'll see we've got a number of widgets that we've got in our developer edition. And here I've got two widgets here that are specific for workflow. Now, how you get these widgets is if you go back to your designer experience and go to help, info, and click deployment, you can then click download workflow widgets for Web App Builder. This will give you the custom widgets, which you then drop into your Web App Builder instance, and then they'll begin to show up in Web App Builder, which I've got over here. So I'm going to select this widget here and add that. And now it's going to ask me which workflow do I want to select. So I think I called this one enter name, and I'm going to select that and click OK. Alternatively, I've got the option to, select and find workflows that have been created within other members in my organization, and also even public workflows as well. But I'm after this enter name workflow, and I'll click OK and add that. So I've now added the workflow, and I can run it. And again, we'll be presented with that form asking me to enter my name, and I'll say, yeah, hello world, looks good, and click submit. Hello world. Now, one of the really nice things is you can change the functionality, make changes essentially to this workflow on the fly. So I could then start adding, different form elements. So maybe add a file picker, add a geometry picker, and if I save this, it's been saved, and rerun this, we've got a file picker and a geometry picker. So really useful for rapidly building these applications. Now, the workflow that I showed you in the past example, this one, took a little bit of time to build, but again, I'm not a developer, and I was able to easily create these forms and the logic to perform, the functionality that you saw in the past example. Now, again, we also have samples as well. So if you just click File, New, you can see there's a whole list of samples here that can help get you started. So if you're, wanting to perform a buffer, you can just select that. It'll give you a sample workflow. You can see how the form was put together and how we're actually performing the buffer. So getting the geometry from that form, getting the distance from that particular form that was selected, and also the unit values of that, and then performing a buffer operation and adding that to the map. So there's a lot you can do. I'm just going to navigate back to the slide deck because that's gives you a little bit of a, a sneak peek into how to build widgets with Geocortex Workflow. Now, our guiding principle here at Latitude Geographics has really been always about enabling organizations to get even more out of their ArcGIS investment. Now, if you're using Web AppBuilder, that's great. And we're really committed to delivering new functionality for Web AppBuilder users and also Geocortex users. So what's next from Geocortex? Well, we're currently building Geocortex Reporting 5. Like Workflow, this will allow GIS administrators to configure reports in this example with a web-based designer that allows you to bring spatial, non-spatial data, maps, charts, and all of that, and create reports on the fly within your WebGIS applications, specifically within Web AppBuilder or your Geocortex applications. And again, it's going to be able to integrate with ArcGIS Online and Portal for ArcGIS, which allows you to store and share your report templates using those methods. So I just wanted to quickly jump into a sneak peek into our new reporting technology. It's should be available in July, and we'll be running a public beta beforehand, so please get in touch with us if you're interested in it. And here I'm in Web AppBuilder, and I'm going to run another workflow. So here I've got a little widget that I've added. I'm going to report a leak. So this is some water utility data here. And let's say I've gotten a call saying that there's been a pipe, this main has broken, and there's a leak happening at this. So I need to identify what assets are affected by this leak. So I'm going to trace this leak. And you can see we've actually reverse geocoded this location. And what we're doing is we're using our workflow technology to run a geoprocessing task that's identifying what valves are affected, what customers are affected, what hydrants are affected, and also what mains are affected as well. So here I'm again presenting the user with a form so they can quickly hover over and see which customers are going to be without water temporarily, and I've got the option to generate a tax parcel report. So you'll see I'm now generating this using our form technology, and I'm essentially calling a report that was created with our new reporting technology, and it's essentially going to look like this. So I've got a little feature map showing the location of each tax parcel. I'm pulling in some ArcGIS attribute information for each feature, and there's a lot you can do. You can add charts, you can report on related data, and the nice thing is it's very seamless to create and also run these reports. So here I've got this tax parcel report that you can see. It's the same example that I just showed you. And if I clicked next here, we're now identifying what valves are affected, and then I could also generate a valves report as well. So how you create these reports is done by our Geocortex Reporting 5 designer. So here you can see this is the customers or tax parcels report that I showed you in the previous example. And again, you're not having to use custom development methods to create these reports. It's all done through configuration. So really, really useful. Super excited to be demonstrating this at our Esri user conference as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. All right. So if you do want to learn more, whether it's maybe about Geocortex Workflow 5, we do have a Discovery Center available. So this has videos. It's got sample applications, so you can try it yourself, see how some of the workflows were built together. So definitely worth checking that out. So that's go.geocortex.com/discover-workflow-intro if you're interested. And yeah, I'm going to be down at the Esri User Conference at booth 101. I believe there's 14 Latitude Geographics employees going down there in total. So it's going to be an awesome time. Tons of demos. We also have a technology update session happening on Tuesday, July 10th from 10:30 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. So that's definitely something you're not going to want to miss. And we also have a Geocortex picnic. We do this every year. It's an awesome time. We invite both our customers and potential customers out to the Embarco Park just outside of the conference. So definitely, yeah, if you're interested, go to go.geocortex.com/EsriUC. And there's a ton of information on the Geocortex picnic and the other different Geocortex activities. And yeah, and there you can see this is the list of all of the attendees from Latitude Geographics that are going to be going down there. So feel free to get in touch with us, book a meeting, or just swing by the booth. I'll be down there, happy to answer any questions. So thanks again for joining me today. And yeah, hopefully you got a quick little sneak peek into how you can build custom widgets through configuration using Geocortex Workflow.